through the lens of science, the most breathtaking finding that I've seen in 30 years as a scientist is this. When we look at people who, through suffering, difficulty, have awakened. So, there's a lovely body of science that shows that very often struggle, suffering, depression is the early phase of an awakening. It's
two sides of one door, as you have so eloquently shared.
Yes, that the yearning and the struggle and the existential emptiness actually reveals that our vessel and capacity has become more capacious and now feels like a half-empty vessel. We are on a quest. So the yearning, the existential frustration doesn't mean we're off the path. It means we're on the path. A knock at the door, a bang at the door for a more deepened connection with God, spirit, consciousness. That is, I think, the majority of forms of human suffering. There are some where there's a biological depression, there's a piece broken, and we fix it with medication. But most of the time, and I'm not against medication, but medication alone is insufficient. Most of the time, there is an emergence that first presents itself. The ignition is struggle. It's developmental depression. When we take this journey and we awaken, what we find is that we've cultivated a path, a spiritual response to suffering that is forevermore there for us. We can always get back. If we invite people to come in, this time not to the MRI machine, but the EEG machine that captures energy given off the back of the head, how we're using the brain waves, what we find is that people to recover, people to move through despair, through an awakening, give off high amplitude alpha, specific wavelength. High amplitude alpha goes by another name in another field. It's Schumann's resonance, the constituent wavelength of nature from the Earth's crust up 1 mile all the way around the Earth, which means the spiritually engaged brain vibrates at the wavelength of all life, of nature, creation. So the kingdom, Eden was not long ago and far away. It's here now, and it is a choice to enter through our seat of being. And we readily then have available to the felt oneness is mirrored by the oneness of wavelength. That to me is the most beautiful finding in science.
So powerful. And there's a part in this book, The Awakened Brain, that I really love. So this was advice Howard Thurman that you quoted gave to someone who was struggling to make a decision and desperate for guidance. And Thurman wrote a letter. His handwritten response said, "You're like a little boy under the Christmas tree who has so many gifts, he doesn't know which one to open first. The main thing is, you must wait and listen for the sound of the genuine which is within you. When you hear it, that will be your voice, and that will be the voice of God." And it feels like when you're in those moments of depression, despair, where you're speaking to awakening is the other side of the door, the making space for silence to discover that which is genuine within you to emerge is it's our primary task, is to make space and see what's trying to emerge from within us. And I know you've really shown so much of that and experienced it obviously in your own life, where those moments of depression eventually gave birth to some of the greatest gifts in your life. Would you agree?
I would say that depression forced me to go deeper on the spiritual path. That was certainly my experience. My husband and I struggled for years praying and hoping for children. It was profoundly, we had the jobs we wanted, we had the friends we wanted, we had the home we wanted, and it all felt empty and for naught in our lives, in our path for us, because we wanted to be parents. And one can, if you will, try to conceive, but humans cannot make conception, right? There has to be the breath of life. So we tried, and 5 years went by, and nobody came. It was profoundly depressing. And that was a journey I share in The Awakened Brain of extraordinary ego death. You could control probably, when it comes to the most important things in life, 2%, 5%. The tidal wave of life is a force far greater than us. And what we can do is start to ask, what is life showing me now? What is life revealing to me now? Not what do I want and how am I going to get it? I want a baby. How are we going to get a baby? Well, let me research the best infertility doctors. Ooh, that didn't work. Let's go to Boston. In Boston, there's a team where their rates are 5% higher. Let's go there. This form of achieving awareness is spoon-fed to us as children and cultivates a form of perception of reality, which is really very anthropocentric, where, we're basically Mighty Mouse in the middle of the universe, commandeering what we want. And if we don't get it, we must up our game. There's a better strategy. But what if the most important parts of our lives, who we love, where we end up finding that we feel alive, with whom, where, what we're doing, are not strategically planned based on yesterday's information, but are really discovered? These are gifts. These are gifts of God, gifts of the universe. They're not what we want. They're better than what we want.
And perhaps in kind of getting close to wrapping up here, you really talk so beautifully about the integration between both achieving and awakened mind. And in so many ways, and I've heard you actually share that we've been educated out of our spiritual awareness, and so a lot of us have to do more work in the building of the relationship with the awakened state and those perceptual capacities. And then there's a cohesiveness and integration with that achievement kind of a mind and the rationality. And as we're riding this wave of life, we, with our intention, kind of carve out the tail, kind of the direction we want to go. But then you're inviting this kind of open palm to see what you want to receive from life as well. And so what have you learned about the importance of the integration of kind of both understandings?
We need both achieving awareness and awakened awareness, and to use them in tandem. So I can ask a grilling question through achieving awareness. What profession do I want to go into? Where do I want to relocate my family? How do I solve this algorithm? And plow through that logically, stepwise, and still not quite have a deep resonance that I've reached a solution. And when I feel stuck with my drilling pure logic, I can toss the question over to an awakened form of knowing. I can see if perhaps I have an intuitive response, or if in my dream life there's clarity and I wake up perhaps in the morning having traveled there and back with a certainty. There are other ways of knowing which are less cultivated than in our mainstream education system that are profound, surefire, hard data ways of knowing. Intuition, mystical awareness. The skeptic is always welcome. The skeptic can help drive this inquiry, but when we can bring into consort multiple forms of knowing, really multiple organic epistemologies, we develop a dialogue between ways of knowing. And this is our greatest strength. This is our greatest strength. We even see that people who walk through life receiving a mystical experience and then discerning its significance, or noticing a pattern in the universe empirically and then intuiting the deeper underlying truth. Myelinate the tracks between regions of the brain. We effectively pave the highways so that we are more innovative thinkers. We are more situationally aware. We are more creative. Yes, in our work, but most importantly in our lives. This is our birthright. And shouldn't every child have this opportunity?
I feel definitely so. And I just think of how some of the most brilliant innovators in the past, like Newton, Edison, Gödel, they had metaphysical practices that would help them tap into that state. And then it's like you kind of receive the insight of whether it's innovation is something you're working on or the direction of your life. It really feels like the balance of both is how life can make the most of you in a way.
And the awakened insight is indeed received. It is a receptive form of transcendent perception. Whereas often there's a more front-footed driving quality to empiricism or logic. And we need to bring both the receptive and the front-footed forms of perceiving and knowing into consort.
Yeah. I found what you shared about Schumann's resonance just so powerful. And I think people that are listening to this podcast certainly strive for the cultivation to like that level of coherence in one's life, where you discover your own well-being, you find that alignment and coherence and, helping and serving the world. I know I definitely feel that on my path. And what are any last thoughts you have for arriving at that place, whether it's through practices, any insights that you feel like we haven't touched on yet, for people to embrace the awakened brain, mind, and life?
Well, the deep rhythm of the universe is experienced by all living beings. So animals don't seem to miss a beat. I can say in my own path, when I'm feeling deeply aligned, when I am connected with the heartbeat of the universe, I am working in tandem with fellow living beings. And when I am feeling surly and out of step and not aligned, I am not working in tandem with fellow living beings. So if, in my meditation life, I'm too distracted to get down to it, in my prayer life, I'm not getting there, go outside to nature and let the animal be your guide. Let the animal be your teacher. Let the tree ground you into all infinity. Because they're always there. They're at your table.